Okay, so before we begin, since it's Junior's Day, I like to show you one of my favorite quotes. It goes like this: the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. I don't divide the world in juniors and seniors, I divide them all in willingness to learn. So whenever you try something new, make sure that if you fail, you will survive it. Learn from your mistakes. And just to give you a small glimpse, Malcolm Gladwell in his book, The Outliers, says that there is a 10,000 hours rule. It takes roughly 10,000 hours to practice to achieve mastery in a field. 10,000 hours divided by 6 a day, by 260 a year, it ends up to 6.4 years. It sounds a lot, but you know what makes a lot of difference? 1 hour plus a day. It's customary when you have presentation to talk about yourselves. I don't like to talk about me, I will show you just some of the things that I do. First of all, I come from Bucharest, Romania. It's my first time here in Kyiv. In Bucharest, I work as quality manager at Capgemini, and I'm also part of the local testing community. Do you have such a community here?
Such, yes.
Such? You should have a testing community, because if you want to grow, it's easier to do it together. It's working again. So just, if you don't have one, start one. It's easier to learn from each other. I also have my own projects, like the testing map, the testing challenges that I will talk about tomorrow, review requirements, this nice and beautiful sketch note, how to make a mnemonic, measures in software development. Now I'm working on a testing training and a presentation about how managing a team is bullshit. And I also build a lot of stuff, because I find it useful if you have things around, it helps people understand. For instance, I built these black boxes. I just have a small one, I was afraid to take them all with me due to airport security, where you can actually practice exploratory testing, just to see how you can manage a system without having any information about it. I have also some bug friends. It's 4 of them. I have one with me today. Now let's just have a small overview about this sketch note. Why a sketch note? Because I found it easier for people to understand if there is something visual, if you can see something. And the idea came upon me when I just wanted to know how actually to review requirements, because there is a difference between reviewing and reading requirements. I keep asking myself, how can you do that? It seems that everybody on the web is focusing on what to do and not how to do it. And I searched a lot and found some very simple techniques that you can use that have a huge impact. So, how you should read the map. So up here we talk about elicitation, how to turn the need into actual requirements. Here you have documenting and priority. Here is how to take the requirements, how to understand them, how to take them with you. Here we have an area about how to memorize them, how to understand them, the big greenish part. What happens when you understand requirements? What happens during coding and testing, and on the operational side? You can't see it very well. This is the testing map. This is something that I built. I wanted to know, what do I know about software testing? And I put on a single piece of paper everything that I thought of. And today we'll talk about the methodology, static testing, review requirements, but also about practices in testing, about processes, and of course soft skills, because when you're talking about reviewing requirements, you need some soft skills. So we'll start with this area over here. Unfortunately, we won't have enough time to talk about everything, every area, but I'll just emphasize a couple of aspects. So I have a question for you. If I were to give you a pot with a chicken and some vegetables, would you be able to cook a soup? Yes. It's already there.
We need water.
You have everything that you need. You have fire, you have water, you have salt, you have spices. Would you be able to cook a soup? You have the cooker. You have everything you need. Would you be able to? Okay. Okay. You have also a recipe. Would you be able to cook it then? Okay, so if you can cook something using a recipe that does not have all the necessary details, why should you expect a requirement to have everything specified? And you know, here comes the difference. Usually, testers that begin tend to want to have specific requirements. But the reason that people come to you for implementation is that you already have the knowledge on how to do it. So don't aim for specifics, aim for reasons. Why do you need it? What's the purpose? Don't have everything stated, because if everything would be stated, then they will just go for implementation to the cheapest provider. If the customer would have all the details, they would go where it's cheaper. But they don't know exactly what to do. So treat every requirement as a recipe. It just gives you the highlights and just work with it. It might not be great the first time, but it might be better the second time. Okay, so next area is the one up here. This one is focused more on, let's say, the soft skill side. There is something called the Lateral Inference, and it goes like this. There is reality. From that reality, you select data. From that data, you tend to perceive a meaning. Once you have a meaning, you make assumptions. You draw conclusions, you adopt beliefs, and you take actions. Once you take those actions and adopt those beliefs, they will highly influence the way you look at things. So if you tend to believe that a customer is stupid, you will always see stupid stuff. Just make sure that what you perceive as reality is actual reality, is not what you have selected from it. This is a very old psychological concept. Next, make sure you work in bursts. The Pomodoro method says that you have to work like 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. But my question to you is, do you know how to take a break? Do you know how to relax but not slow down? Because taking a break doesn't mean to slow down, because it will be difficult to catch up again. You see, it's a really simple question. For me, it was eat. I smoke. So whenever I take a break, I go for a smoke. It doesn't pull me down, it just relaxes me. I'm not saying that you should all smoke, but find the thing that relaxes you. It does not slow you down, but it relaxes you. And learn to take breaks. In Romania, we have the, let's say, working law, where it states that if you work on the computer, you have to take 10-minute breaks every hour. There is a reason for breaks. Next, if somebody says something stupid, like, I need the house to fly, don't laugh at them. Ask them why. This is called the Miller's Law. Try to understand what's behind the request. Don't treat him as a dangerous or stupid person. Try to find out the reasons behind it, because you will end up in a huge argument if you don't trust them. There is a reason why they are asking that. It might sound stupid, but for them it has meaning. Also, make sure that you actively listen. Try to reflect back and say what you have understood. Extremely simple technique. And also, look at yourself. The way your face looks might give them a clue. It doesn't hurt from time to time to smile. Even if deep inside your soul you're feeling angry, try to smile. It will change a lot. And one important fact, if you get angry, Once you go past 120 beats per minute, you're no longer in charge. So your brain gives full control to what's called the reptilian part of your brain that is responsible for survival. You're no longer in control of your action. So if you feel that your heart is pumping, stand up and take a break. Okay, now I have a question for you. What do you do when you enter an elevator? You press the button. Next. Okay, next. You move up or down. Anybody has something to add? Look into the mirror and take some actions if necessary. Okay? Yeah, but let me tell you one thing that you do and you're completely unaware of it. You turn around to face the door. Okay, why? Why could you not say that? It's so simple. Because in many situations, we just do things because we cannot have such a big attention span. We focus only on some particular activities. Even though we believe we are in control, in many situations we just do things automated. We just follow the lead. This was extremely highlighted by what's called Ash paradigm. And they have done some experiments using the elevator. And I don't know if you see it quite well. All of these people here, they are actors, and this is the victim. She got in, she faced the door. What happened a couple of floors later? She turned around. Without even realizing it. So the Ash paradigm says that a person's own opinion and action are influenced by the majority of the group. So whenever you talk about requirements within a group, make sure you don't follow the group. Have your own opinion first, challenge it, and talk with them. Because, you know, when we talk about IT, usually people think about computers. But what I believe IT stands for is for people and information. A computer will do what the person will tell him to do. If you don't understand it as a developer or as a tester, neither will the computer. So it's a lot of human interaction. Next, we'll talk about this part, how to remember things. One important aspect to take into account is that forgetting, it's an exponential function. If you don't actively recall from time to time what you have remembered, you will forget it. Your brain has to make place for new information. If you don't use it, it will drop it away. So, let me talk to you about this thing. This is actually a, can you guess? It's a tester's brain. It's square and it's big. And what it has inside is, first of all, money. Okay, because we all think about money. Second, it has bugs. Smaller one, bigger ones. It stopped working. It's working again. So perhaps I should not move that much. But the biggest part inside it, it's actually made up of unfinished or incomplete work. There is something called the Draghia effect. It was discovered a long time ago. It says that things you have not completed tend to pop up in your mind more often than the things that you have to do. So what you haven't finished, it will start to haunt you over and over and over again. So one important thing is to know how to take notes, how to remember stuff. Counting on your mind won't get you anywhere. You will just forgive stuff. So how to take notes? One simple example is this. It's called Cornell notes, where you have the main ideas, key questions, and then you have a description of what you do. Another one is just like the word heading. You have the headers, the main ideas, then you start to bullet them down the way. One idea is to use mind maps or sketch notes. But you need to have your own way. See what works for you. Try it. If it doesn't work, change it. Find your own way of taking notes. sorry, you can see this. This is how I try to understand something called the law of requisite variety. It's quite simple. It says within a complex system, there is no such thing as centered control. And I just started to draw, make some sketches, and in the end it made sense. Because if the system is so complex, it will need a lot of checks. So you have to give the checks within the system. So how to take notes? First of all, have something to write on, and have your favorite pen. Have you heard about James Bach? He's one of the, let's say, leading figures in testing. He always has with him this small pocket book and a pen. Always writing stuff down. Why? Because you will forget. And the second reason is that once you look at it again, you will see a different meaning. You will perceive it totally different. But of course, if you're a new age person, you might use some other type of devices. When I was born, there were no computers, so I tend to use pen and paper. Okay. Am I going too fast? Too slow? No? Okay. So, this up here, it's how to remember stuff. And down here we'll have how to understand stuff. Because you all know and you perceive the difference. There is one thing to know things and another thing to understand them. And let's just have a look at a visual representation. If this would be knowledge, just knowing stuff, this would be understanding it. Making connections. Seeing what's there, what's behind the knowledge. So, knowledge, understanding. Knowledge, understanding. I'm just trying to hypnotize you a little bit. Let's just get back with a small example. If you see here, there is a small bicycle. There was this Dutch guy that made the bicycle that went the other way around. If you turn the handle to the left, the wheel would go on the right. So what he would do, he would just make a talk and ask people, if you can take the bike like 10 meters, you will get 100 euros. Nobody ever did it. Even though you know how it's working, you're missing the understanding. So you have to be really careful about these things. Now we'll start to talk about how to understand. This is the most important part. You see there are so small, so trivial techniques that you can use to make your life better. First of all, you need to know that there are two types of thinking. One is focused and one is diffused. The focused one means that you're concentrated, you have fixed neural pathways, you have done this before, you know how to do it. The other way comes only when you're relaxed and you develop new neural pathways. It's like sometimes you're chasing an idea, you want something new to see, but actually it's not there. But when you go to bed, the ideas don't go away. And we have here Dali, if you know him. Actually, Dali and Thomas Edison had two ways of getting new ideas. They would just sit on their chairs, try to sleep, either with their keys or some ball bearings in their hand. And when they fell asleep, they dropped them and they woke up and they had these marvelous ideas. So again, find a way to be relaxed and you will see things differently. Usually when you talk about requirements, you have to look for some specific stuff. Like they have to be clear, complete, consistent, and ambiguous. Make sure there are no overlap, no redundancies, no opposing things, no semantics. It sounds easier to do, but we'll just go with some small techniques on how to do them. Now, let's get a small example of a, let's say, requirement or statement that I got from the earlier flight yesterday. The stewardess said that in the unlikely event of a water landing, the life vests are located under your seat. Who sees something wrong here? The unlikely. Anybody else? Then I have a question for you. What exactly is a water landing? Was the plane designed to land in water? I think not. So you have to make sure that you look behind the words. Who has to land? My plane. Was my plane designed to land on water? No. Then it cannot be called a landing. It might be called a landing for me to feel safer, but it's actually a lie. A plane cannot land on water unless it's a hydroplane. It may crash on water or have a control dive on water, but it cannot land on water. One simple way to do it. These are called the critical thinking questions or investigative reporter questions. They are who, what, when, where, why, and how. What I did at my working place, I tried to find out all the possible questions within my context that I can use. I ended up with a lot of questions. You cannot use them all the time. You cannot have them as a checklist. It would be too much to go to every story. So what I did, I asked everybody to give me a favorite picture so that I can make them playing poker cards. Do you know what playing poker is? Okay. So what I did next is I put the questions on each card. They were selected randomly, so nobody had the same questions on the same number. The idea was just to get people to think about them. Just have a look over the questions. See within your context, how can you apply those questions? How can you use them? After a certain amount of days or weeks or months, you will see that the answers will just pop up in your mind without even asking the question. All you need to do is just go through them over and over again. One other important thing is how you visualize what you implement. Usually there is a roadmap, and what you build has to fit somewhere. Now another question for you. How do you eat an elephant? You must know the answer. How?
Piece by piece.
In small pieces, so you can eat an elephant. Usually what happens is that we take requirements and put them on the roadmap. And afterwards we start to implement them. And we have to make sure that they fit. Because what happens is that there is no single one requirement. There are many requirements. They're all spread out. There are different business cases, different epics, different user stories. They all mingle, and we have to have an idea about what we build. This is how we do it at my workplace. So we have here the epics, and here we have the sprints. And in between, we have the user stories. So if we're working on one epic, you'll see what we have done before. And it changes with the progress. If something is not done where it's supposed to be, we shift it afterwards. So have a visual representation about what you're working on. Use diagrams, drawings. Imagine that you have a new requirement and you have to fit it somewhere. If you have a drawing about it, it's extremely easy. You just look at it, where does it fit? This is one of the biggest diagrams that I've ever built. It's with all our systems. It took 1 week to build, but it gave me and everybody else a better understanding about what we're dealing with in terms of integration. Just having people gather around and looking at the same thing makes the whole difference in the world. If you're looking at text, everybody has their own interpretation. If you look at a drawing, you see connections. You see it there. Everybody sees the same thing. Maybe in different colors, but you usually see the same thing. One other small technique is simulate and model. Just imagine what would happen if, okay, so we implement this, what should change then? What should be the new behavior? How should I do it? Who does it? Who doesn't do it? Just simulate and model the new requirements. See what would happen then. Okay, now let's see what happens if you start to understand requirements. First of all, you need to think about testability, and that's extremely important for us. And I have here with me Chaos. Here he is. He's a testability bug. Why? First of all, because he's camouflaged. It's very often the case when you get bugs into production that testability is their actual root cause. And let's see what's testability made of. He also has his name here. He's called Chaos UI. And it stands for controllability. Do you have... It's not working. It's working. Do you have control over what you have to test? The second one is called heterogeny. Should I move? Okay, I'm going too far away. It says that the more diverse technologies you use, the more testing tools you would need to know and use. Automatability. Is it easy to automate it? Can you test it afterwards? A question for you. Is there such a thing as automated testing? Everybody feels there is a trap question and nobody wants to answer. Okay, there is no such thing as automated testing. Have you heard about automated development? No. At the most, it's automized testing. And in truth, is automated checking. You just do, it's not working again. You just do checks. You check for certain aspects. Testing is more than checking. Checking is just a small part. But let's get back to its name. So it's called chaos, control, heterogeny, automatability, observability. How easy it is for you to see the behavior of the component that you test. Separation of concern. How separated can you test it? Do you have to test it with a lot of things around it? Can you test it all alone? Sorry for that. U stands for understandability. Can you understand it easily? But not only you, also the people around you. Okay? And the last one, I, stands for resolvability. Can you test it on its own without any interference? So whenever you think about requirements and understanding them, think about testability. How easy it is for you to test it. Can you test it? And come back with a feedback. Ask people, fight for it. They might ignore you at the beginning. You see there is, on the drawing, there is a mosquito here. It's small, but it can do a lot of damage. Who hasn't been able to sleep in a room with one mosquito? It must have happened to you at least once. Beat that mosquito. If people don't care about testability, well, make them care. It's not their fault we don't know about it, but they should know that it will help you a lot. The second thing is, what kind of practices should you use? What kind of strategies and techniques should you apply within that context? Make yourself a small plan. What will I use? How will I test it? You have to make sure also that everybody within the team has the same view. You have the same understanding. How can you do it easily? Have a drawing. It's the simplest way to make sure that everybody sees things in the same way. If you understand requirements, then you will see what risks are. You will see what open issues you have. Do you know the difference between risks and open issues? Okay, a risk is something that might occur. There is a probability. An open issue already has occurred. It's there. You have to deal with it. If you understand requirements, it will be easier to give up estimates. Why? Because you know the impact, you know the assumptions, and you know the dependencies. Okay? How much time do I have? Okay, 10 minutes. Good. I left out the last part so that we can talk about it. If you have any questions about something, I think most of you have a copy of the map. If you don't have any question, I'll just start and talk about things that I believe would be important for you to know. No questions? Okay, so if you look at the map up here in the corner, you'll see Peter Pan, a doctor, and a lemon. Okay, what do they actually mean? Do you know about the Peter Principle?
What?
No?
Believe? No.
It's not belief. So the Peter Principle was discovered somewhere in the 70s, and it goes like this. Within an organization that has a strong hierarchy, this is the true meaning, people will be promoted up until they become incompetent. Why? Because usually if there is a hierarchy, you will not be promoted for the job that you will do, You are promoted because you're good at the job that you're doing now. And at some point, they will be very different. So you will be promoted up until you become incompetent. Just think about it. If you're not doing a good job at your current position, make sure that you know what people expect of you. And this is extremely important for every tester. Ask your colleagues what are their expectations. Do they want you to find all the bugs? Okay, then you might need some help. If they say to you their expectations, you can say to them your demands, what your needs are. If they expect something from you, then they will understand your needs also. The next one here is doctor. So let's imagine that we go to the dentist, okay? And they fix you up and say, it's like, it will be 40 euros, but you have to give me 10 euros because I have to buy a book, and another 50 because I have to go to a conference. Would you pay him?
If he did a good job, why not?
Okay, but would you actually pay him? If he would tell you that the work that he has done is valued at 40 euros, but you have to pay 100 euros because he has to buy a book and go to a conference.
No.
You would most probably not pay him. Then think about it. Why should your employer pay you to learn? You see, in many situations, we see our employers not as partner, but as somebody that we have to fight with. Your employer should be your partner. You should bring something up to the table. Just think about one thing. If you would read one article a day about testing, there are around 300 or 400 blogs. At the end of the year, you will be much wiser. You would have read at least 360 articles. You would have learned from other people's experience. Bring something on the table. You know, sometimes managers think bad about testing because nobody else can tell them the truth. Because we stand and expect them to know and understand what we do without even us understanding what we have to do. If you look at testing as just checking, then it's easy. But if you start to see how complex it is, what you need to know, then it's extremely challenging. And I want to share a story with you. Once I started testing in 2004, we were a team of 5. Out of those 5, 2 became project managers. 1 became a marketing director, and another one supplier quality manager. And then there's me.
What do you do?
Why? I mentioned earlier, it doesn't work, it's working. My title is quality manager, and I moved a little bit up to the scale, and now I'm taking care of processes and activities. But why do you think this happened? Why do you think testers change roles?
As you say, they grow up until they're uncompetent.
Not exactly. Because they became very good at their job, they understood the development process. It's working. So they became very good at their job, they understood the development process, they fixed issues, they prevented issues, they worked together with everybody else. So they became extremely valuable for the companies that they worked in. So think about it. I'm not saying that if you're a good tester, you should move to a different positions. What I'm saying is that if you become a good tester, you will know how things work around. You will understand the mechanism. You'll have to work within teams. You'll have to know how to manage people, how to get the developer to fix that bug that you don't like, how to get them to work with you. How do you have time? 1 minute? 5 minutes, okay. So we have another story here about this lemon over here. Somewhere in 1994, 2 people robbed a bank. They were caught pretty soon afterwards. Why? Because they put lemon juice on their face in the mistaken belief that it would prevent the cameras from capturing their face. And there were these 2 guys, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, and they just said, okay, that's like being stupid. What did they think of? And they started to do some research. And what they found out is that there is an ability of the unskilled to recognize their ineptitude. So people that know less have very high self-esteem. They believe that they know actually a lot. It's extremely important to know what you don't know. Just once a year, try to put on a piece of paper what you learned, what you know, and then you'll see the difference every year at a time. Learning should be a conscious thing. You should do it on your own. And I hate to break it to you, but there is no such thing as happily ever after. You know, when we are young, we are told these stories that there is a fight, something happens, and at some point afterwards, everybody stops doing anything. They just live happily ever after. Where life is not like that. You have to learn all the time. You have to change things. You have to adapt to new situations. Now we're no longer talking about countries, we're talking about the world. In Romania, for instance, India is one of our greatest competitors. So is Poland, so is Ukraine. It's no longer just an internal competition. You have to strive to be the best. And you can do it, but not by laying around. You have to do something and do it consciously. And you can start even tomorrow. Just read one article regarding testing. There is one of two things might happen. One, you might feel stupid because you have no idea about it. And the second thing, there is a quote from this Romanian writer, "I know I'm stupid, but when I look around, I become brave." But start to do something, and don't be judgmental. People might not know something because they did not have the opportunity. Being judgmental is like a disease for software testers. You start to assume that everybody wants to do bad things. Nobody wants to do bad things. They might not be so careful, something might have happened, they might have been distracted, probably they have a personal problem or not. Just work with the people. And don't be there like a, how can I put it, like a stop. Be there just to make sure that everybody does a good job. And if they see you as a bad person, well, it's your fault. You have to make them understand that you're not there to correct their mistakes. You are there to make sure that as a team, you do a good job. How are we on time? 2 minutes. Okay. Do you have any questions?
I just want to ask, you previously said that there is difference between what you know and what you understand, yes?
Yes.
And your example was a bicycle, but
yes.
No one could ride this bicycle because people who try don't have reflexes, right? They know how to ride, they understand that if they turn left, then it should go right. But every bicycle that they tried before act differently, so they have different reflexes, right? So is reflexes also some aspect of this?
Just think about the Ash paradigm. You can talk about, let's say, physical reflexes because you can perceive them easily. But think about the mental ones. You go into an elevator and you have no idea that you turn around to face the door. Just think about how many of those reflexes you actually do when you interact with people and when you do stuff. There's actually...
So these reflexes are something like understanding?
Yes. You understand the reasons, you see why you have to do them, and you're in control. When you ride an elevator, you say, I'm not going to think and turn around towards the door. You'll just do it, because you need to keep your mind easier. Any other questions? I'm not that scary. We have one other question here.
Did you read a special literature for understanding these techniques?
So what I actually did, exactly, what I did, so I was totally unhappy with the fact that everybody said what to do in terms of requirements. Nobody said how to do it. And I started to search Google. I went up to the 30 pages. So you can imagine Google search has more than one single page. So one thing led to another. The way that I do it when I have to search something, I just find a topic, save it and print it. And I ended up with this file this big, and then I just start to read it. As I mentioned, I wasn't born when computers were available, so I have to use paper. So jumping from one thing to another, I just found out about all these things. And how extremely important it is to have your personal way of remembering stuff and writing them down. Wherever I go, I have a pen with multiple colors because that works for me. You have to find your own way. How does it work for you? And if you think about it, requirements are the most important, one of the most important things a tester should know. What are the actual requirements? What do they want to build? What is already been built?